"You have until sunset to leave," the Earl of Westhaven said, placing an eviction order upon Evelyn Mercer's reception desk. Behind him, fashionable guests watched the owner of the Grand Mariner Hotel lose everything she had built. Evelyn read the document once. "Your estate ignored this harbour for 12 years, she said. "Now that an investor wants the coast, you remember you own the ground beneath us." Adrian Pembroke's expression did not change. "The hotel's lease has expired." Before Evelyn could answer, every window in the lobby shook. A harbour bell began ringing through the darkness. A winter storm had turned without warning, trapping 40 guests inside the hotel. Beyond the glass, the seawall split and a fishing boat vanished behind the waves. Evelyn removed her mourning gloves. "You may evict me at sunset, your lordship. Until then, this is my hotel, and those people are now my responsibility." The front doors burst open. 3 fishermen carried an injured man into the lobby. Blood ran from a cut above his brow, and seawater poured from his coat. Guests scattered. "Ballroom," Evelyn ordered. "Move the tables against the wall. Ada, bring blankets from the east cupboard. Mr. Hale, light every stove we can safely use." Adrian stepped towards the injured man. "I will send for the estate physician." "The road is already flooded," Evelyn replied. "There will be no physician until the bridge is passable." Another wave struck the outer wall. A chandelier trembled overhead. Sir Malcolm Vane entered from the dining room, fastening his coat. He had arrived that morning with 2 solicitors and a purchase agreement Evelyn had refused to read. "This building must be evacuated," he said. "To where?" Evelyn asked. "The upper road." "The upper road is under water." Vane turned to Adrian. "Sign the harbour transfer now. My boats can be deployed immediately." Evelyn looked at him. "Your boats are tied at the private quay beyond the broken wall." "They are reinforced. They are also too large to enter the fishing channel." Vane's smile cooled. "You manage a failing hotel, Mrs. Mercer. You are hardly a harbour engineer." "No. I merely live here." That answer silenced him for a moment. Adrian looked through the lobby windows. Rain moved sideways across the glass. Lanterns swayed along the promenade, and figures were running from the lower cottages towards the hotel. "How many people can this building hold?" he asked. 200 if no one expects comfort. You have 40 guests already, and 60 staff and residents in the cottages." Another bell rang. Evelyn moved towards the service corridor. "Mrs. Flint, open the rear entrance. Bring the village families through the kitchen passage. Noble guests may keep their rooms, but they will surrender spare blankets." A gentleman near the stairs objected. "I have paid for private accommodation." Evelyn turned. "You have paid for a bed. You have not purchased the right to let a child freeze." Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he removed his gloves. "What do you require from me?" Evelyn studied him. An hour earlier, he had arrived to remove her from the building. Now the storm had made titles less useful than strong hands. "Go to the cellar," she said. "The Western coal store is flooding. Move what remains before the water reaches it." One of Vane's solicitors stared at her. "You cannot order an earl into a cellar." Adrian took off his coat. She just did. Within an hour, the Grand Mariner had become a refuge. The ballroom held injured fishermen on mattresses taken from unused rooms. The dining room served hot broth from the hotel's emergency stores. Children slept beneath tablecloths whilst servants carried water through the corridors. Evelyn moved from room to room with a ledger in one hand. She recorded every bed, blanket, and sack of flour. Adrian found her in the kitchen, dividing bread into smaller portions. "You are counting food during a flood." "I am counting it because of the flood." "How long can the stores last?" 2 days at full rations. 4 if the road remains closed and the wealthy guests discover hunger is survivable." He glanced towards the dining room. "They will complain." "They already have." "What of the hotel cottages?" 3 are damaged. The eastern row may be lost if the tide rises again." Adrian looked towards the lower harbour. My estate agent reported those cottages repaired last autumn. Your estate agent lies. The words were blunt enough to offend. He did not react immediately. What evidence do you have? I paid for the roof timber myself. From hotel funds? Yes. Why? Because the rain did not care who owned the lease. Adrian's face tightened. The estate accounts showed payments for harbour lamps, rescue ropes, and cottage repairs. If Evelyn had paid for them herself, someone had been submitting false invoices. Who authorized the estate work? He asked. Mr. Pell, your land agent. Adrian knew the name well. Pell had managed the coastal accounts for 8 years. Before he could ask more, a young maid ran into the kitchen. Mrs. Mercer, the north windows are leaking badly. Evelyn handed Adrian the bread knife. Continue dividing those. You are leaving me with kitchen work. You said you wished to help. She was gone before he could answer. He looked at the loaf, then at the maid. How many pieces? 32, my lord. He cut 34. The storm worsened after midnight. A section of the outer sea wall collapsed with a sound like distant artillery. The floor beneath the ballroom shook. Guests began shouting. Evelyn climbed onto the small musician's platform. Listen to me. The room remained chaotic. She struck a serving spoon against a brass tray. The sound cut through the noise. No one goes outside without permission. The lower road is gone. The eastern staircase remains safe. Families with children will move to the upper drawing rooms. A man near the door raised his voice. My carriage is on the front drive. Then it is now a boat. Several nervous laughs followed. It was enough. The panic weakened. Adrian watched her restore order without begging for silence or invoking rank. She understood fear because she had spent years managing people who arrived tired, angry, or ashamed. A fisherman entered carrying a broken lantern. The harbour warehouse is cut off. How many inside? Evelyn asked. 8. Perhaps 10. 2 children. Adrian moved towards the door. We need ropes. Evelyn looked at him. The front route is impossible. There must be another. There is an old delivery passage beneath the hotel cellars. It once connected to the warehouse. Does it still? I do not know. Vane stepped forwards. This is madness. The passage may already be flooded. Evelyn took a lamp. Then I shall find out. Adrian reached for another. You are not going alone. You are the landlord preparing to evict me. And you are the tenant about to enter an unstable tunnel. I know the building. I can carry more weight. She looked at his broad shoulders. That is the first useful argument you have made. They entered through the cellar. The passage was narrow, lined with wet stone and old iron pipes. Water reached their ankles within 20 yards. Adrian carried rope over one shoulder. How long has this existed? Since the hotel was a customs house. Why was it closed? Smuggling. He glanced at her. You say that rather calmly. My late husband found 3 false walls and enough French brandy to embarrass the county. The water rose to their knees. They reached an iron door at the far end. It had swollen inside its frame. Adrian forced it open. The warehouse beyond was dark, except for one lantern. 6 fishermen, 2 women, and 2 children were waiting on stacked crates while seawater entered beneath the outer doors. Evelyn crossed first. We are taking you through the hotel passage. One of the men shook his head. The little boy cannot walk. His leg is injured. Adrian lifted the child without hesitation. Then he will not walk. The return took longer. Halfway through the tunnel, water surged behind them. One woman slipped. Evelyn caught her arm, but the current pulled them both sideways. Adrian passed the child to a fisherman and reached back. His hand closed around Evelyn's wrist. For one moment, the water dragged against all 3 of them. Then Adrian pulled them upright. Move, he said. They reached the hotel cellar just before part of the passage collapsed behind them. Dust and seawater burst through the opening. Evelyn leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Adrian looked at her. "Are you injured?" "No. You nearly drowned." "So did you." "That is not an answer. It is the only one you are receiving." He laughed once. The sound surprised both of them. Then the rescued child began crying, and the moment ended. By morning, the storm had weakened, but the roads remained closed. The hotel windows revealed a damaged harbour. Boats had broken loose. Part of the promenade had disappeared. The sea wall showed a jagged opening wide enough for waves to enter the lower street. Thomas Reed, the harbour engineer, arrived soaked and exhausted. "The storm exceeded every calculation," he said. Evelyn placed the hotel tide ledger upon the reception desk. "No." Reed looked at her. "We have had higher tides, not with this wind. 3 winters ago, the wind was stronger." She opened the ledger to the marked page. The wall held. Reed's face tightened. Adrian stepped closer. "When was the wall last inspected?" 6 weeks ago." "By you?" "Yes." "And it was sound?" "Yes." Ada Flint entered, carrying an iron tool wrapped in cloth. "We found this near the damaged foundation." Reed stared at it. It was a long wrench, newer than anything used by the harbour crews. "The wall bolts were loosened," Evelyn said. Vane appeared at the foot of the staircase. "That is speculation." Evelyn looked at him. "Then why are you answering before the engineer?" Silence followed. Adrian examined the tool. A manufacturer's mark had been stamped into the handle. "Vane Marine Works." Vane crossed the lobby. "My company supplies tools throughout the coast." "Convenient," Evelyn said. His expression hardened. "You remain under eviction, Mrs. Mercer. And you remain inside my hotel." Adrian placed the wrench on the desk. "No document will be signed until the wall failure is investigated." Vane stared at him. "Without my capital, Westhaven's farms may not survive spring." "I know." "Then act like a landowner rather than a guest impressed by a hotel keeper." Evelyn looked towards Adrian. This was the question beneath every choice he had made. Would he protect the harbour when doing so became expensive? Adrian's voice remained calm. "I said there will be an investigation." Vane walked away. Evelyn closed the tide ledger. "You have delayed the sale." "Yes." "You have not rejected it." "No." She nodded once. "Then the storm has taught you less than I hoped." Adrian's expression changed. "You believe 48 hours erase the debts of an entire estate?" "No. I believe necessity is the word powerful men use when they want someone else to pay." She left him beside the desk. Near the damaged wall, Thomas Reed quietly removed a folded paper from his coat and pushed it into the hotel stove. Ada saw him. The corner did not burn completely. After he left, she pulled the fragment from the ash. Only 3 lines remained. They contained a payment number, a date, and Sir Malcolm Vane's initials. The wall had not failed by chance, and someone expected the storm to make certain no evidence survived. Ada placed the half-burned paper on Evelyn's desk. Only 3 lines remained. Payment 47B, Harbour Reinforcement Delay, M. Vane. Evelyn read them twice. "Where did you find this?" "In the stove." Mr. Reed put it there after speaking with the Earl. Adrian stood near the window, studying the damaged harbour. "Thomas Reed signed the wall inspection," he said. "If Vane paid him, the certificate may be false. Or Reed may have discovered the sabotage and accepted money to remain silent," Evelyn replied. "Either way, he knows more than he admitted." They found Reed in the hotel boiler room, preparing to leave through the servants' entrance. Adrian blocked the door. "The roads are still closed. I was going to inspect the eastern wall." "With your luggage?" Reed looked at Evelyn. "I have already told you what happened." "You told us the storm exceeded the design," she said. "My tide log proves otherwise." Adrian placed the burned fragment upon a coal bin. Reed's face lost colour. Vane had approached him 3 months earlier. The investor already knew Westhaven intended to sell the harbour district. A damaged wall would allow him to reduce the price and force the government to declare the fishing harbour unsafe. Reed had been ordered to loosen several support bolts and delay repairs. He said the wall would fail gradually, Reed said, after the harbour was empty. You trusted a man who paid you to damage it? Evelyn asked. My son owes money to one of his companies. Vane threatened to have him imprisoned. So you endangered every family living below the wall. Reed lowered his head. I thought we had weeks. The sea does not honor business schedules. Adrian's expression was severe. Will you testify? If I do, my son's debt remains. I did not ask about the debt. Reed looked towards him. No. Then people may die when the next section fails. I have told you the truth. In a boiler room, Evelyn said. That protects only your conscience. Reed flinched. She did not threaten him or promise immunity she could not provide. Decide before the inquiry, she said. But understand that silence is also a decision. The roads reopened the following afternoon. Vane immediately demanded a public harbour inquiry at the Grand Mariner. He expected officials to blame Evelyn for failing to maintain the building and surrounding structures under the expired lease. The hotel ballroom, which had served as an emergency ward 2 nights earlier, became a hearing chamber. Government inspectors sat at a long table. Fishermen, hotel employees, tenant farmers and landowners filled the room. Vane arrived with solicitors and engineering reports. Evelyn carried only the hotel tide ledger and Ada's burned fragment. Adrian stood beside Lady Charlotte Pembroke, who had reached the coast that morning. Charlotte was Adrian's widowed younger sister and one of the few people willing to question him directly. You intended to sell all of this? She asked, looking towards the crowded ballroom. I intended to preserve the estate by transferring the harbour to a man who weakened its wall. I did not know. No. You merely chose not to look closely whilst the offer was useful. The accusation resembled Evelyn's. Adrian accepted it without defence. The inquiry began with Vane's solicitor. He argued that the hotel lease had expired and that Evelyn had continued operating a dangerous building without sufficient reserves for coastal maintenance. The storm exposed years of neglect, he said. Evelyn stood. The hotel does not own the sea wall, but you benefited from it. So did the estate, the fishing fleet, and every business on the lower road. She presented 12 years of letters requesting repairs from Westhaven's land office. Most had received no reply. Adrian examined them publicly. My agent reported these repairs completed. Evelyn opened the tide ledger. The hotel recorded every major storm, flood level, and wall inspection. 3 previous tides exceeded this one. The wall remained intact. The government engineer reviewed the entries. If accurate, the recent storm alone does not explain the failure. They are accurate, Ada said. I recorded half of them myself. Vane dismissed the ledger as the notes of a hotel keeper without technical training. Evelyn placed the new wrench upon the table. This was found beside the loosened foundation bolts. Vane's company mark was visible on the handle. My factories sell thousands of tools, he said. Then one of your customers used it very carefully. The room stirred. Lady Charlotte rose with a packet of copied correspondence. Whilst trapped at the hotel, she had examined the purchase figures Vane supplied to Westhaven. His offer decreased after every report of storm damage. One letter instructed his agent to delay repairs until the harbour received an unsafe classification. Another described the Grand Mariner as most valuable once emptied of tenants and sentimental resistance. Vane turned towards Adrian. Private commercial correspondence taken without authority. Correspondence concerning my estate, Charlotte replied. You had no right. Neither did you have the right to manufacture its collapse. The government inspector called Thomas Reed. For several moments, No one knew whether he would enter. Then the ballroom doors opened. Reed walked to the front alone. He admitted signing the false safety certificate and loosening the wall supports under Vane's instruction. He had expected gradual damage, not immediate failure. Vane's solicitor attacked his credibility. A man who admits fraud will say anything to reduce his punishment. Reed placed a payment receipt and technical instructions on the table. I kept these because I knew Sir Malcolm would deny me if the plan failed. The instructions carried Vane's private office seal. The room fell silent. Vane's expression remained controlled. Even if this absurd claim is accepted, Westhaven still requires my capital. The farms are failing. The hotel is insolvent. Exposing me does not create money. He turned to Adrian. My final offer remains. Sell the fishing harbour, retain the hotel, and protect your tenants. One community must yield, so another may survive. Everyone looked towards the Earl. Adrian had considered nearly that exact compromise. It would preserve Evelyn's hotel, but destroy the livelihood of the fishing families who had sheltered inside it. Evelyn did not ask him to choose her. She had already told him what such choices revealed. Adrian stepped towards the inquiry table. I came here prepared to evict Mrs. Mercer and sell this harbour because I believed necessity excused neglect. He looked towards the fisherman. I relied upon false accounts because they allowed me to avoid examining what my estate had failed to provide. Vane's eyes narrowed. Do not confuse confession with finance. I do not. Adrian placed a signed document before the inspectors. I am selling my London club, my racing carriages, and the Pembroke shooting estate. The proceeds will cover emergency farm wages and the first stage of harbour repairs. Charlotte stared at him. The club had belonged to their father. The shooting estate was valuable and socially important. Vane gave a short laugh. You would sell private property for fishermen who will never repay you. Adrian's answer was calm. They have already paid through 12 years of neglect. He rejected the sale publicly. The inquiry suspended every agreement involving Vane's companies. Sir Malcolm was detained for questioning on charges of fraud, sabotage, and reckless endangerment. Thomas Reed lost his official engineering position, but his cooperation prevented further collapse. Under independent supervision, he later helped design the new wall. The eviction order remained. After the inquiry, Evelyn found Adrian alone in the empty ballroom. Blankets had been removed. The polished floor still showed marks from emergency beds. You have not withdrawn it, she said. No. She looked at him sharply. The lease expired. So you intend to continue? I intend to replace it. He handed her a new agreement. It granted Evelyn a 30-year lease with full operational control of the Grand Mariner. Rent would remain fixed for 10 years. Neither Westhaven nor any future investor could remove hotel employees or convert the building without her consent. The harbour itself would be placed under a governing board represented by fishermen, farmers, hotel workers, and the estate. Evelyn read every clause. You retained ownership of the ground. Yes, and surrendered control of nearly every decision. I have not demonstrated that my control improved them. She looked at him. You could have sold the hotel and kept the harbour. I could. Why did you not? Because the hotel remained standing when the estate systems around it failed. His gaze moved towards the windows. And because you maintained responsibilities that belonged partly to me. Evelyn signed. This is not forgiveness. I did not expect it. It is also not gratitude. I would be disappointed if it were. For the first time, they smiled without argument. Spring brought repair crews, government inspectors, and more bills than either of them wanted to count. Adrian returned to Westhaven to examine every estate account personally. He dismissed the land agent who had submitted false invoices and met with tenant farmers rather than relying upon written reports. Evelyn rebuilt the lower guest rooms, and reopened the Grand Mariner in early summer. She expected Adrian to visit as landlord. He did not. 3 months later, he arrived at the reception desk carrying one small case. "I require a room." Evelyn looked behind him. "No servants?" "One valet is deeply offended at being left in London." "Purpose of your stay?" "The sea air." "You dislike sea air." "I have reconsidered." She opened the register. "Name?" He looked at her. "Adrian Pembroke." "Title?" "Unnecessary." "For the bill, perhaps." "Earl of Westhaven." She turned the register towards him. "Sea view rooms cost more." "I own the building." "You lease it to a woman with complete operational control." He signed. An error in negotiation. Too late. Adrian did not propose marriage that evening. He asked whether he might dine with her after the guests had been served. The following morning, he joined an inspection of the new wall and listened when fishermen criticized the design. He returned several weeks later. Then again, their courtship developed without contracts, rescue or public declarations. Evelyn remained owner of the hotel business. Adrian did not convert her work into a fashionable diversion. By the following winter, they were engaged. The annual harbour dinner filled the Grand Mariner ballroom with fishermen, farmers, servants, and former guests who had survived the storm. Outside, heavy rain struck the windows. No one panicked. The new sea wall held. Evelyn and Adrian stood together on the balcony overlooking the harbour. Every lamp remained lit. "You once came here to evict me," she said. "You mentioned that during dinner. I intend to mention it annually. I deserve no less. And now? Now I pay full price for the sea view." She rested one hand upon his arm. Below them, rescue boats moved safely behind the strengthened wall. The storm had not saved their hotel or created their love. It had merely removed every comfortable excuse for ignoring what was already failing. What they built afterwards had required something harder. Responsibility, honest partnership, and the decision to remain when leaving would have been easier. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. Subscribe for another original British period romance filled with courage, honor, and unexpected love.